Friends, you have tuned to Tunnel of Dark Narrations. Thank you. I'm Turk Strongman. If you desire continued horror, look here for at least one new video per week, usually on Fridays. Please give the video a thumb up. It will show everybody that you like anything that you like. And I humbly request that you subscribe to the channel and click on the new upload notification bell. But please also remember to keep checking back in case the new upload notification feature doesn't actually notify you. Our present story. Excerpts from The Liberty of Man, Woman, and Child by Robert G. Ingersoll in 1915. The entirety of which he orated publicly. Beware, it contains mature themes that affect us all, young and old alike. Unavoidably so, for they tell the facts of the case. Without them, there would be no story. And for us, right here, right now, following the sound of the crystal bowl, there is only the story. Now on with the show. I used to read in books how our fathers persecuted mankind, but I never appreciated it. I did not really appreciate the infamies that have been committed in the name of religion, until I saw the iron arguments that the Christians used. I saw the thumb screw, two little pieces of iron, armed on the inner surfaces with protuberances to prevent their slipping. Through each end a screw uniting the two pieces. And when some man denied the efficacy of baptism, or maybe said, I do not believe that a fish ever swallowed a man to keep him from drowning, then they put his thumb between these pieces of iron, and in the name of love and universal forgiveness, began to screw these pieces together. And when this was done, most men said, I will recant. Probably I should have done the same. Probably I would have said, stop. I will admit anything that you wish. I will admit that there is one God or a million, one hell or a billion. Suit yourselves, but stop. But there was now and then a man who would not swerve the breadth of a hair. There was now and then some sublime heart willing to die for an intellectual conviction. Had it not been for such men, we would be savages tonight. Had it not been for a few brave, heroic souls in every age, we would have been cannibals, with pictures of wild beasts tattooed upon our flesh, dancing around some dried snake fetish. Let us thank every good and noble man who stood grandly, so proudly, in spite of opposition, of hatred and death, for what he believed to be the truth. Heroism did not excite the respect of our fathers. The man who would not recant was not forgiven. They screwed the thumb screws down to the last pang, and then threw their victim into some dungeon, a dungeon where, in the throbbing silence and darkness, he might suffer the agonies of the fabled damned. This was done in the name of love, in the name of mercy, in the name of Christ. I saw, too, what they called the collar of torture. Imagine a circle of iron, and on the inside 100 points almost as sharp as needles. This argument was fastened about the throat of the sufferer. Then he could not walk, nor sit down, nor stir, without the neck being punctured by these points. In a little while the throat would begin to swell, and suffocation would end the agonies of that man. This man, it may be, had committed the crime of saying, with tears upon his cheeks, "I do not believe that God, the Father of us all, will damn to eternal perdition any of the children of men." I saw another instrument called the scavenger's daughter. Think of a pair of shears with handles, not only where they are now, but at the points as well. And just above the pivot that unites the blades, a circle of iron. In the upper handles, the hands would be placed. In the lower, the feet. And through the iron ring at the center, the head of the victim would be forced. In this condition, he would be thrown prone upon the earth, and the strain upon the muscles produced such agony that insanity would in pity end his pain. I saw the rack. This was a box like the bed of a wagon, with a windlass at each end, with levers and ratchets to prevent slipping. Over each windlass went chains. Some were fastened to the ankles of the sufferer, others to his wrists. And then priests, clergymen, divines, saints began turning these windlasses, and kept turning until the ankles, the knees, the hips, the shoulders, the elbows, the wrists of the victim were all dislocated. And the sufferer was wet with the sweat of agony. And they had standing by a physician to feel his pulse. What for? To save his life? Yes. In mercy? No. Simply that they might rack him once again. This was done, remember, in the name of civilization, in the name of law and order, in the name of mercy, in the name of religion, in the name of Christ. Think how long we clung to the institution of human slavery. How long lashes upon the naked back were a legal tender for labor performed. Think of it. With every drop of my blood, I hate and execrate every form of tyranny, every form of slavery. I hate dictation. I love liberty. The history of man is simply the history of slavery, of injustice and brutality, together with the means by which he has, through the dead and desolate years, slowly and painfully advanced. He has been the sport and prey of priest and king, the food of superstition and cruel might. Crowned force has governed ignorance through fear, hypocrisy and tyranny. Two vultures have fed upon the liberties of man. From all these there has been and is but one means of escape: intellectual development. Upon the back of industry has been the whip. Upon the brain have been the fetters of superstition. Nothing has been let undone by the enemies of freedom. Every art and artifice, every cruelty and outrage has been practiced and perpetrated to destroy the rights of man. In this great struggle, every crime has been rewarded and every virtue has been punished. Reading, writing, thinking, and investigating have all been crimes. Every science has been an outcast. All the altars and all the thrones united to arrest the forward march of the human race. The king said that mankind must not work for themselves. The priest said that mankind must not think for themselves. One forged chains for the hands, the other for the soul. Under this infamous regime, the eagle of human intellect was for ages a slimy serpent of hypocrisy. The human race was imprisoned. Through some of the prison bars came a few struggling rays of light. Against these bars, science pressed its pale and thoughtful face, wooed by the holy dawn of human advancement. Bar after bar was broken away. A few grand men escaped and devoted their lives to the liberation of their fellows. Our fathers were intellectual serfs, and their fathers were slaves. The makers of our creeds were ignorant and brutal. Every dogma that we have has upon it the mark of whip, the rust of chain, and the ashes of faggot. Our fathers reasoned with instruments of torture. They believed in the logic of fire and sword. They hated reason. They despised thought. They abhorred liberty. Strike with hand of fire, O weird musician, thy harp strung with Apollo's golden hair. Fill the vast cathedral aisles with symphonies sweet and dim, deft toucher of the organ keys. Blow, bugler, blow, until thy silver notes do touch and kiss the moonlit waves, and charm the lovers with childhood's happy laugh, and charm the lovers wandering mid the vine-clad hills. But no, your sweetest strains are discord all, compared with childhood's happy laugh, the laugh that fills the eyes with light and every heart with joy. O rippling river of laughter, thou art the blessed boundary line between the beasts and men. And every wayward wave of thine doth drown some fretful fiend of care. O laughter, rose-lipped daughter of joy, there are dimples enough in thy cheeks to catch and hold and glorify all the tears of grief. When I think of how much this world has suffered, then I think of how long our fathers were slaves. of how they cringed and crawled at the foot of the throne and in the dust of the altar, of how they abased themselves, of how abjectly they stood in the presence of superstition, robed and crowned. I am amazed. When all men give to all others all the rights they claim for themselves, this world will be civilized. There's never been upon the earth a generation of free men and women. It's not yet time to write a creed. Wait until the chains are broken, until dungeons are not regarded as temples. Wait until solemnity is not mistaken for wisdom, until mental cowardice ceases to be known as reverence. Wait until the living are considered the equals of the dead, until the cradle takes precedence of the coffin. Wait until what we know can be spoken without regard to what others may believe. Wait until teachers take the place of preachers, until followers become investigators. Wait until the world is free before you write a creed. In this creed, there will be but one word: liberty. Jonathan Edwards, the dear old soul, if his doctrine is true, is now in heaven rubbing his hands, his holy hands, with glee, as he hears the cries of the damned. Preached this doctrine. He said, "Can the believing husband in heaven be happy with his unbelieving wife in hell? Can the believing father in heaven be happy with his unbelieving children in hell? Can the loving wife in heaven be happy with her unbelieving husband in hell?" And he replies, "I tell you, yea. Such will be their sense of justice, that it will increase rather than diminish their bliss." Well, there is no wild beast in the jungles of Africa whose reputation would not be tarnished by the expression of such a doctrine. These doctrines have been taught in the name of religion, in the name of universal forgiveness, in the name of infinite love and charity. It is a question of justice, of mercy, of honesty, of intellectual development. If there was a man in the world who was not willing to give up, or to give to every human being every right he claims for himself, he is just so much nearer a barbarian than I am. It's a question of honesty. The man who is not willing to give to every other the same intellectual rights he claims for himself is dishonest, selfish, and brutal. I have heard them preach when I sat in the pew and my feet did not touch the floor about the final home of the unconverted, in order to impress upon the children the length of time they would probably stay if they settled in that country. The preacher would frequently give us the following illustration. Suppose that once in a billion years, a bird should come from some far distant planet and carry off in its little bill a grain of sand. A time would finally come when the last atom composing this earth would be carried away. And when this last atom was taken, it would not even be sun up in hell. Think of such an infamous doctrine being taught to children. Thanks for listening to excerpts from The Liberty of Man, Woman, and Child, friends. And a special thank you to author Robert G. Ingersoll for having had the courage to write it and furthermore to publicly orate it in the first place. I hope that you enjoyed the story and that you felt the horror of the true history it denotes. I think that Mr. Ingersoll would really appreciate it if you give his story a big thumb up, his oration, his speech, his lecture, his truth, below the video. And I welcome your comments further down. I just ask that when writing your comments, you keep an open mind and respect others. I plan to open the way soon for you to submit your own horror stories for narration here. If you like this channel, feel free to support it by subscribing to it. And please always check back for weekly uploads. Lastly now, amid the noisy, confusing haste of this old world, its ghostly shadows of the past, and its vague uncertainties about the future, strive to stay alive, to be well, and to find peace in your restless souls. I'm Turk Strongman. Thank you for tuning to Tunnel of Dark.